My name is Lorraine Ashford, and I'm 75 years old. I've got silver hair that used to be chestnut brown, hands that have held babies and shoveled snow, and eyes that have seen far too much for one lifetime. I've lived long enough to know that life has a cruel way of circling back, sometimes giving you another chance to make things right, and sometimes forcing you to watch history repeat itself in the most heartbreaking way. And right now, I'm watching my daughter live the same hell I once escaped. It's a quiet Tuesday afternoon, and I'm standing at my kitchen sink in my little ranch house on the edge of town, looking out over the field of dried golden grass. My tea has gone cold on the counter. I've been staring at my phone for the better part of 20 minutes, wondering whether to call her again. Her name is Celeste, my only daughter. My pride, my joy, my stubborn-headed girl who inherited both my sharp cheekbones and my tendency to believe love can conquer anything. And just like I once did, she married a man who made promises with a smile but kept control with his fists. When I say fists, I don't mean only the kind that leave bruises you can see. Sometimes a fist is a slammed door, a cruel word at the dinner table, a bank account you're not allowed to touch, a "you're nothing without me," whispered in the dark so only you can hear it. I know those fists. I lived with them for 22 years. Back when I was Celeste's age, I was a girl from a small Georgia town who thought love meant staying no matter what. My ex-husband, David Ashford, was handsome, charming, and dangerous in ways I didn't understand until it was too late. By the time I realized what kind of life I'd stepped into, I had 2 children, no money of my own, and a family who told me marriage was forever no matter how it felt inside. The day I finally left him was the day I learned that freedom can cost everything. Your home, your friends, your reputation, but it's still worth paying for. So when Celeste called me 2 years ago, her voice trembling, saying, "Mama, I don't know what to do," I told her the truth. "You leave, baby. You pack up that little daughter of yours and you walk out before it eats you alive. Don't make the same mistake I made." She didn't listen. I could hear it in her voice. Fear dressed up as loyalty. The same fear I once wrapped around myself like a blanket because I thought it was safer to stay than to step into the unknown. And now, 2 years later, she's living in the shadow of a man who's slowly draining the light out of her. This morning she showed up at my house without warning. I knew something was wrong the moment she walked through my door. She didn't even take her coat off, just stood there holding her purse like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. "Hi, Mama," she said softly. Her eyes, my eyes, were swollen, the skin around them raw like she'd been crying for days. I put the kettle back on the stove and asked her to sit. She didn't. Instead, she walked over to the window, staring out at the bare trees in my yard. "I think Caleb's going to leave me," she said. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to say, "Good. Let him." Another part wanted to scream, "Why did you wait this long?" But I didn't say either. I just asked, "What happened?" She told me about the fights, how they were happening almost every night now. How Caleb would come home late, smelling like whiskey and expensive cologne she didn't own. How the money kept disappearing from their joint account, and how he'd stopped even pretending to explain where it went. And then she said the part that made my hands shake. "He told me last night that I'd never make it on my own, that I'd end up crawling back." Closed my eyes. Those were David's words, word for word. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her, tell her that if she didn't walk away now, she'd lose more than years, she'd lose herself. But before I could, she turned to me with tears spilling down her cheeks. "Mama, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can leave him." That was the moment I felt something break inside me, not because she said it but because I knew exactly how she felt. And I knew that until she decided for herself, nothing I said would matter. She left after only 20 minutes, saying Caleb would be home soon and she didn't want him to know she'd been here. Now I'm standing at my sink, my tea gone cold, my heart pounding. I've spent 40 years building a life I'm proud of, running my little quilting shop, raising my children, traveling when I could, laughing with friends on Friday nights. I've built proof that a woman can rebuild herself from the ground up. But what good is my proof if my own daughter can't see it? I pick up my phone, ready to call her again when I hear it. Car door slamming outside. I glance out my window and see a dark blue pickup pulling into my driveway. Caleb. And he's not alone. If you want to hear what happens when my daughter's husband walks through my door uninvited, and what I say that changes everything, like, comment and subscribe because this story, it's only just getting started. The dark blue pickup rolled to a stop in my driveway, dust settling behind it like a warning cloud. My stomach tightened the way it used to when I'd hear David's boots on the porch steps all those years ago. Caleb stepped out first. He was tall, 6'2" maybe, with that same square-jawed charm that probably caught Celeste's eye when she was 23 and thought she was invincible. He had on his work jeans, steel-toed boots, and a Carhartt jacket, the collar turned up against the cold. The passenger door opened, and a man I didn't recognize climbed out. Stockier, maybe mid-30s, with a baseball cap pulled low. My mind ran through the possibilities. Friend, co-worker, or the kind of company that makes a man feel braver than he really is. I didn't like the look of either of them. They started toward my front door without hesitation. No knock, no pause, no respect for the fact that this was my home. I took a deep breath, smoothing my cardigan over my shoulders, and opened the door before they could. If there's one thing I learned after years with David, it's that you don't give a man like this the satisfaction of making you feel trapped. Caleb, I said evenly, blocking the doorway. This is a surprise. Afternoon, Lorraine, he replied, smiling in that practiced, polite way that hides something sharper underneath. His voice had just enough of a southern drawl to make it sound friendly, even when it wasn't. You got a minute? That depends. Is my daughter with you? His smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed just enough for me to see the truth. No, she's at home. I just thought we should talk. I can't imagine what about. He took a step forward, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of whiskey under the mint gum he was chewing. It's about Celeste. She's been acting different, distant, and I got a feeling you've been putting ideas in her head. I held his gaze, not flinching. I've been telling her to take care of herself. If that's what you mean by ideas, then yes, I've been putting them there. The man behind him shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the yard. Caleb didn't move. Look, he said, lowering his voice. We've had some rough patches, but she's my wife. My family. I don't need you stirring the pot. She belongs with me. Belonging isn't the same as loving, Caleb. And you don't get to tell me what I can or can't say to my own daughter. His smile faded then, replaced by something colder. You think you know better because you're older? Because you left your husband? That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, I said quietly. That was when he stepped closer, his boots on the threshold, his shadow spilling into my home. I could feel the heat of him, the quiet intimidation. Careful, Lorraine, he said. You keep this up, and you're gonna push her away from you. Maybe for good. There was the threat. Not physical, not direct, but sharp enough to cut. I smiled, though my heart was thudding. If she ever pushes me away, it'll be because you've convinced her to. But here's the thing, Caleb. Truth has a way of coming out, even when you work real hard to bury it. We stared at each other for a long moment, neither of us blinking. Then he stepped back, motioning for the other man to follow. "Come on, Earl," he said over his shoulder. "We're done here." They walked back to the truck, the gravel crunching under their boots. Before he climbed in, Caleb turned and said, "Stay out of our marriage, Lorraine. For everyone's sake." I shut the door before he could see the way my hands were shaking. After they left, I sank into the armchair by the window, the same chair I used to rock my babies in when they were sick. I thought about calling Celeste right then, but what would I say? "Your husband came to threaten me. He's trying to scare me into silence." Would she believe me, or would she defend him the way I used to defend David? I hated the answer that came to mind. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook, jotting down every detail of Caleb's visit. The time, the words, even the smell of whiskey on his breath. Old habits die hard. When I left David, I kept a similar record, because I knew someday I might need proof. By midnight I'd filled 3 pages. At 1 in the morning my phone lit up. Text from Celeste. "Sorry I came by earlier without calling. Caleb's been in a mood. I'm fine. Love you." I stared at the words. No punctuation except the period after "I'm fine." I knew what that meant. She wasn't fine. The next morning I went into town early to open the quilt shop. It's a small place, tucked between the bakery and the hardware store, but it's mine. Every bolt of fabric, every spool of thread, every creaky floorboard. When I first opened it 25 years ago, people told me it wouldn't last. But here I was, still standing, still selling handmade quilts and teaching classes to anyone who wanted to learn. Around 10 o'clock, as I was restocking the front display, the bell over the door rang. It was Caleb. Alone this time. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face calm. "Can I help you with something?" he asked. He walked slowly down the aisle, running his hand over a row of bright floral fabrics. "I wanted to apologize for yesterday," he said. Waited. "I might have come on too strong," he continued. "I just care about Celeste. I don't want her to get hurt." "Then stop hurting her," I said before I could stop myself. His eyes flicked up to mine. "You think I'm the problem. I know you are." He smirked like he knew something I didn't. "Funny thing about marriage, Lorraine. People only see what they want to see. And from where I'm standing, you don't know the whole story." He turned toward the door, but before he left he added, "You should ask Celeste what she's been up to before you paint me as the bad guy." The bell jingled as the door shut behind him. I stood there, my mind spinning. Was it a bluff? A distraction? Or was there something I didn't know about my own daughter? That night, I decided I couldn't sit by anymore. If Celeste wasn't going to leave him on her own, I needed to find a way to make her see the truth. But what if the truth wasn't what I thought it was? The next morning, I drove to Celeste's house without telling her. I parked down the street, watching from behind the wheel. The curtains in the front window were drawn. No sign of movement. Then, around 10, the front door opened. And it wasn't Celeste who stepped out. It was Caleb. With another woman. She was young, maybe late 20s, early 30s, with dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail and a coat that looked like it had never seen a day of hard weather. She laughed at something Caleb said, the kind of laugh you can hear even from inside a car with the windows rolled up. He held the door for her as if he was born a gentleman, which I knew he wasn't. She stepped out with a small tote bag on her arm, and they walked together down the driveway toward his truck. The bag was pink, and I knew it. It wasn't Celeste's. It belonged to my granddaughter, Lily. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles whitened. This wasn't some casual visit. This woman had been inside their home in my daughter's space, close enough to touch my granddaughter's things. Caleb opened the truck door for her, then leaned in close, his mouth just a breath from her ear. She laughed again. I wanted to storm out of my car right then, demand to know who she was, what she was doing in my daughter's home, but I didn't. Because when you've lived the life I have, you know there's more power in watching quietly than in rushing to make a scene. Followed them. It wasn't hard, they weren't exactly subtle. They drove to the edge of town, to a diner with a neon sign that's been buzzing since the 70s. I parked across the street and slipped inside a few minutes after they did. The waitress, Patty, gave me a nod as I came in. "Morning, Lorraine. Coffee, please." I slid into a booth near the back, angled just enough so I could see them without being obvious. Caleb sat with his back to me, the woman across from him. She leaned forward, hands curled around a steaming mug, smiling in that soft, familiar way women do when they feel safe. Made my stomach turn. He touched her hand across the table, and she didn't pull away. I sipped my coffee and thought about Celeste. About the way she used to braid her hair on the porch when she was a little girl, legs swinging as she asked me what I'd make for dinner. About how I'd sworn to protect her from the kind of life I had. How I'd told her, over and over, that no man was worth losing yourself for. And yet here we were. They left about 30 minutes later. I didn't follow them this time. I already knew enough. Instead I went home, pulled out the notebook I'd started after Caleb's visit, and wrote down every detail. What time they left her house. What the woman looked like. Where they went. How long they stayed. I wasn't ready to confront Celeste yet. I needed more than my word. Because I knew exactly how that conversation would go. She'd say I misunderstood, that Caleb would never, that I was looking for trouble. I had to bring her proof she couldn't ignore. 2 days later I got it. I went back to their street, parking in the same spot. It was just after noon when Caleb's truck pulled up again, the same woman inside. But this time it wasn't just the two of them. Lily came running out the front door, squealing, "Miss Hannah," before throwing her arms around the woman's legs. Miss Hannah. That name lodged itself in my mind like a splinter. They all went inside together, and 10 minutes later, I saw Caleb leave alone. The woman stayed. The next morning I made my move. Called Celeste. "Morning, honey," I said, keeping my voice light. "I was wondering if you and Lily might want to come over for dinner tonight. I'm making chicken pot pie." There was a pause on the line. We can't tonight, Mom. Hannah's coming by. She's been helping me out with some things." I forced myself to keep my tone calm. "Hannah. That's nice. How do you know her?" "Oh, she's just a friend of Caleb's from work. She's been great with Lily." My grip on the phone tightened. "And you're comfortable with that?" Another pause. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because I thought she isn't here to help you. She's here for him." That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the steam curling from a cup of tea gone cold. The more I thought about Hannah's smile, the way Caleb looked at her, the more certain I became. This wasn't just some harmless friendship. It was history repeating itself. And if I didn't step in now, Celeste would end up like I did at her age. Alone, blindsided, and wondering where it all went wrong. The turning point came the following week. I was in the grocery store when I heard someone call my name. "Lorraine." I turned to see Hannah herself, standing by the produce section, holding a basket. Close, she was even prettier. Not movie star beautiful, but the kind of pretty that feels effortless. Clear skin, warm eyes, and a confidence in her posture. "Hi," I said carefully. "I've been meaning to meet you," she said, smiling. "Celeste's mom, right? Caleb talks about you all the time." Something about the way she said it, sweet but with a hint of, what? Amusement. Challenge. Made me want to dig my nails into my palms. Well, I said, that's funny. He's never mentioned you to me. Her smile didn't falter. I guess some things don't come up. She reached past me for a bag of apples, and as she did, she said softly, "You've got a lovely granddaughter." I stood there watching her walk away, my heart pounding. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to wait for Celeste to see it on her own. If I had to drag the truth into the light, I would. Because my daughter was in the middle of a storm she couldn't see, and I wasn't going to let her drown in it. The only question was how. I could tell her everything I'd seen, but if she was still holding on to Caleb, she'd defend him. No, I needed her to see it for herself. And I knew just the way to make that happen. The plan came to me the same way a summer storm rolls in. Slow at first, then all at once. If Celeste wouldn't believe my words, she'd have to see the truth with her own eyes. And that meant creating a moment where Caleb would reveal himself without knowing she was watching. I started with the simplest tool I had, timing. I knew Caleb's habits. He was a creature of patterns. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he left the house around 10 in the morning. Said he was going to run errands or check in on a job. He'd be gone for 2 hours, sometimes 3. That's when I'd see Hannah's car. I decided the only way forward was to lure Celeste away from home during one of those windows, then find a way to bring her back without warning. The opportunity came on a Thursday. I called Celeste early that morning. "Hey, I've been thinking. I could use your help picking out a new coat. You've always had a good eye for these things." She laughed. "You never ask me to go shopping with you." "Well, I'm making an exception. I'll buy you lunch too." It took a little more coaxing, but eventually she agreed. We drove to the outlet mall an hour away, wandered through the racks, and I pretended to be interested in everything from heavy wool to faux fur. Celeste was relaxed, smiling. For a moment, it felt like the heaviness between us had lifted. Around noon, I glanced at my watch. Perfect timing. "Shoot," I said, patting my pockets. "I think I left my wallet at home. We'll have to go back before I can buy anything." She groaned good-naturedly. "Mom, you're impossible." I just smiled. "You'll thank me when you see me in my new coat." We pulled into her driveway just after 1. The first thing she noticed was that Caleb's truck was still there. "That's weird," she said. "He told me he had a meeting." The second thing she noticed was the other car parked behind it. A dark blue sedan. Hannah's. I didn't say a word. I just followed her up the front walk, my stomach tightening. From inside we heard laughter. A woman's voice. Celeste's eyes flicked to mine. She reached for the doorknob, then hesitated, as if bracing herself. When she pushed the door open, the scene hit like a punch. Hannah was sitting on the couch, shoes kicked off, a glass of wine in hand. Caleb was leaning against the armrest, his hand resting far too comfortably on her knee. They froze when they saw us. "Celeste," Caleb said, standing quickly. "You're home early." "Apparently," she said, her voice tight. Hannah set her glass down. "I was just leaving," Celeste cut in. "You were just leaving." Hannah's face flushed, but she didn't argue. She slipped her shoes on, muttered something about misunderstandings, and walked out the door. The silence that followed was thick. Celeste turned to Caleb. "Care to explain?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's just a friend. You're overreacting. A friend who sits in my living room drinking wine with you when I'm not home. Who my daughter calls by name." His jaw tightened. "You're making this into something it's not." I'd heard those words before. From my own husband all those years ago. I stepped forward. "Celeste, I've been watching this for weeks. He's been bringing her here when you're gone. This isn't the first time. She looked at me, hurt flashing across her face. Not at me, but at the realization settling in. Is that true? She asked Caleb. He didn't answer. Which, of course, was answer enough. The argument that followed was messy. Caleb accusing me of meddling. Celeste demanding the truth. Me refusing to back down. By the time it ended, he was gone. Slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. Celeste sat on the couch, staring at the floor. I told you, I said softly. I told you to be careful. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't want to believe it. I rested a hand on her shoulder. I know. But now you know. And you get to decide what happens next. She didn't decide right away. For weeks, Caleb called, texted, even left flowers on the porch. She didn't answer him, but she didn't throw the flowers away either. I recognized that limbo. The part of you that still hopes they'll change battling the part that knows they won't. I couldn't make the decision for her. But I could make sure she had the strength to make it herself. That's when I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the box under my bed. Inside were the journals I'd kept during my own marriage. Page after page of my younger self trying to survive a man who made me feel small. I gave them to Celeste. Read them, I told her. Not because I want you to pity me, but because I want you to see where this road leads. She hesitated, but eventually she took them. And as the days went by, I saw something shifting in her. The way she stood taller. The way her voice didn't waver as much. I knew she was getting ready. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have predicted, was how Caleb would react when he realized she wasn't going to fall back in line. And that's where everything took a dangerous turn. It happened on a Saturday evening. Celeste had been quiet all week, almost too quiet. She'd read every one of my journals, start to finish. She didn't talk about them, but I could see in her eyes she'd walk through every moment with me. Every slammed door, every empty promise, every night spent wondering if leaving was worse than staying. That night, I was sitting in my little kitchen, peeling apples for a pie, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was Caleb's truck. I almost didn't answer when the knock came, but something in me said it was better to face this. I opened the door, and there he was, sweating despite the cool air, a bouquet of grocery store roses in one hand and a takeout bag in the other. I just want to talk, he said. I didn't move. You need to leave, Caleb. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I should have shut the door right there. But the years had taught me that sometimes, letting someone speak is the quickest way to be done with them forever. He came inside, placed the flowers on my counter like they were some peace treaty. I messed up, he said. I was stupid. Hannah. It didn't mean anything. Celeste means everything to me. I folded my arms. You had your chance to show her that. You didn't. He took a deep breath. I can change. And there it was. That same line I'd heard from my own husband decades ago. The line that's kept more women trapped than locked doors ever could. Caleb, I said, my voice steady. A man doesn't bring another woman into his home by accident. He doesn't lie for weeks by mistake. This isn't about changing. It's about who you are. That's when the door opened behind us. Celeste stood there, her hair pulled back, wearing the same red sweater she'd had on the day she married him. Her eyes were clear, her voice steady. I heard everything, she said. Caleb turned. Baby, please. She held up a hand. Stop. I know what you've done. I know what you are. And I know I don't want it in my life anymore. He stepped toward her, but she didn't move back. You're making a mistake, he said. No, she replied. I'm fixing one. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I didn't need to ask to know what it was. Divorce papers. I had them drawn up this week, she said. Sign them and you can walk out of here with some dignity. Don't, and I'll see you in court, and trust me, you'll lose more than your pride. For a moment I thought he might explode. His jaw worked, his hands clenched. But then he grabbed a pen from the counter, scribbled his name, and shoved the papers back into her hand. Fine, he spat. You'll regret this. No, she said again, her voice even stronger this time. I'll regret not doing it sooner. He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. The quiet that followed was the kind you could breathe in. Celeste set the papers down and looked at me. I thought it would hurt more, she said softly. It will, I told her. But then it won't. And one day, you'll look back and wonder why you ever thought you needed him. She nodded, and I saw the first flicker of freedom in her face. It's been a year since that night. Celeste sold the house, moved into a little craftsman with a porch swing and a big garden. She started painting again, something she'd given up after marrying Caleb. Last month, one of her pieces was featured in a local gallery. She laughs more now. She hosts dinners. She's alive in a way I've never seen her before. And me. I don't meddle much these days. But every time I see her, I'm reminded that the life I fought for wasn't just mine. It became the proof she needed that freedom is worth the cost. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is show them the door they're too afraid to walk through. And sometimes they surprise you by walking through it, head high, never looking back. If you've been through something like this, if you've ever found the strength to close a door on someone who hurt you, share your story in the comments. It might be the thing another person needs to hear tonight. And if you're still on the fence, wondering if it's worth it, let this be your sign. Life after leaving isn't just possible. It's beautiful. Like, subscribe, and come back next week for another story that might just change the way you see yourself.